going on, guys? Welcome back to the stream. How we doing? How we doing? What's good? Fire day today. Kulati stare. Kulati is staring at me. Welcome to the stream, Kulati. All right, chat. Should we get some presentations going? Like, how do we feel? Wait, Marie. Marie? Why did Marie send this in the? Why did? All right, Fenib, go for it.
Perfect. Well, hello everybody.
Hi, Fenib.
I'm Fenib, and in case some of you don't know, I'm a massive enjoyer of classical music. I've been learning classical piano for about 15 years now, which is essentially as long as I can remember. But beyond that, I'm also fascinated by classical music history, because there's 500 plus years of records of composers' lives, the things that they did, and how that influenced the music that they wrote. And I think it's a fascinating subject to delve into. So, without further ado, let's get into composers acting up. These are some of the most diabolical anecdotes from the annals of classical music history. And definitely some fun things to go through. So let's start with number one. Veracini gets a little paranoid.
Okay.
This is Italian composer Francesco Maria Veracini.
Okay.
Now, in the early 1700s, in the courts of Florence, he's an up-and-coming star in the Italian music world. Now, often, to increase your standing in the royal courts of Europe as a composer, you would go and compose for a different court and get a position there.
Yes.
So Veracini moved to Dresden, where there was a
Morton?
large
We'll ask
royal
him.
court with numerous paid
fire.
composers, and secured a position there where he would be writing music to be performed in the courts. Now, Veracini was an asshole. He was very arrogant, and he thought he was the best at everything. And so he did not get on well with the other court musicians. He was constantly getting into arguments with them. They hated him, he hated them, and he got really paranoid.
Like
He
me,
thought that the court musicians were constantly conspiring to have him booted out. And eventually he got so paranoid that he believed that they were trying to murder him. Now, this was not true. There is absolutely zero
about
evidence that
paranoia.
any of the court musicians had any intent to murder Veracini, but
Just like, I'm gonna get murdered.
that didn't stop him one night jumping out the window of his multi-story apartment building onto the cobbles below. He broke his hip and his foot and walked with a limp for the rest of his life. Anyway, after that, the courts of Dresden decided that they didn't want to deal with this absolute madman, so they sent him back to his native Florence, where he composed for the royal court there for the rest of his life, and affectionately earned the title Head
What's up,
Lunatic.
amigo? Head lunatic is crazy.
Moving on to number two, Berlioz is not good with women.
Okay.
This is French
I know
composer Hector
Berlioz.
Berlioz. He's perhaps the
What's up, Morris?
quintessential romantic composer, a man whose solitary pursuit in life was to reach the pinnacle of musical expression, with all of the fiery passion that came along with that. And with
That's fair,
the
actually.
quintessential
What is
romantic
this
life
font?
came a lot of romance. Now, the first woman that Berlioz fell for was an English actress named Harriet Smithson.
Harriet Smithson.
Berlioz first met her
That's
when
font,
she
yeah,
was
fine, fair.
performing in a Shakespeare play, and he was completely smitten and became obsessed with the idea of trying to marry her.
That's
now, there's a
creepy.
small issue here. See, Harriet doesn't speak a word
Yeah,
of French,
Dylan.
and Berlioz doesn't speak a word of English. But that doesn't stop Berlioz from stalking her for 3 years, renting apartments near where she was performing, writing her a bunch of love letters, which she never responded to, writing 2 overtures and a symphony for her, and staging an entire concert for her when she came to Paris, and she did not show up. Only after all of that did Berlioz decide that maybe Harriet wasn't going to be the one. So he decided to start trying to make things
Bro.
happen with a French woman named Marie Moque. Now,
See, these days
things
men
were
like
already
that
better.
just spend
See,
like
Marie
$2 million
spoke
on a woman
French,
for a year.
so they could actually communicate, and
Oh,
they
they
could
could speak this
communicate well
time.
enough to the point where they actually agreed to get engaged. Now,
Wow, he convinced
shortly
her.
after they got engaged, Berlioz won a French composition prize known
Okay.
as the Prix de Rome. Now, the stipulations of winning the Prix de Rome meant that you had to go to Rome for a couple of years to do a residency
And we're at this next on
composing
the
there.
list.
So Berlioz packs up his bags, leaves Marie in Paris, and heads off to Rome to do composition.
Okay.
They're still engaged, and the plan is that they'll get married when
Is he gonna
gets
meet
back.
another woman in Rome and
But
then
while Berlioz is away
no.
in Rome, he finds out that Marie is secretly trying to break off their engagement and get with a French piano manufacturer
Camille?
named Camille Pleyel. And this makes Berlioz really mad. Marie and Camille elope to the south of France in Nice to have a holiday there, and Berlioz decides to travel via train from Rome to Nice to deal with them.
oh to
Now, how is he going to deal with them?
deal.
Well, on the way there, he steals a double-barreled rifle, buys some poison, and also some women's clothing as a disguise, and decides to assassinate both of them. Oh, and for good measure, he also decides that he's going to assassinate Marie's mother, who for some
Oh, just
reason he
add it
refers
on.
to as Le Hippopotamus. Anyway,
Okay,
on the
fine.
way there, Berlioz got to Genoa and thought better of this. He decided that, you know what, it's actually not
he
such a
thought
good
that- okay.
idea to assassinate both of them.
Maybe not.
I could get in a lot of trouble for that,
Yes,
and
you
that would be
could.
pretty miserable.
Yes,
So
it
what'll I
would.
do? I'll kill myself instead. And he decides to jump into the ocean at the beach of Genoa with the disguise on. And luckily for him, some locals saw him struggling in the water and fished him out, where he lay on the beach vomiting up a bunch of seawater for half an hour. And eventually he decided, you know what, hang it all, I'm just going to go back to Paris.
My God,
Now,
bro.
you might think that after all of this, Berlioz would have just given up on women. They were
You'd
too
think.
much effort.
You'd think, right? The pain.
Well, he did for all of about a year until he decided to try and get back with
Oh
Harriet
my
Smithson.
God.
And this time it worked. They actually agreed to get married in 1833.
Harriet, no.
And all's well that ends well. Until 7 years later, when Berlioz decided to start an affair with Italian pianist Marie Recio, who was to be his second and final wife. Moving on to part 3, Bruckner gets a little too chummy with some skulls. This is German composer Anton Bruckner.
I'm having
Bruckner
terrible thoughts.
was a profoundly weird dude. He was obsessed with counting things. He would count floorboards, bricks, and
Veronica.
railings.
He would
He
count.
also had a morbid fascination. He took a photo of his mother's corpse and had it framed and hung up in his study room, where he did all of his composing. And he also was obsessed with viewing
No, you know what, as you
dead
do.
bodies.
Yeah. Viewing dead
So,
body. What's it?
When the opportunity came up that Beethoven and Schubert's cadavers
No.
were being exhumed to be reburied in Vienna Central Cemetery, Bruckner decided that this was way too good of an opportunity to pass up. So he went and had a look and kissed both of their skulls. Moving on swiftly to part 4, where we will end our journey. This is Russian composer Igor Stravinsky, who we met at the very start of this presentation. This is French composer Claude Debussy.
Love Debussy.
Stravinsky sent Debussy a DM. And we'll leave it there. I will
sent a
sound you off
dick
with a
pic?
glorious performance of Chinese composer Tan Dun's Water Concerto.
Welcome to modern classical music, ladies and gentlemen. Saskia. Thank you for the follow. And have set such a high standard. Wait. This is so funny because in college, I took an entire semester long class on history of classical music after 1945. So I know all about this stuff more than I should. This is crazy.
There we go.
Welcome, chat. For my presentation today, I've decided to go on unfortunate naming in science, or fortunate depending on how you look at it. And I'm going to tell this through a collection of what I deem incidents. Yeah, for the enjoyment of Bloom and chat. The first incident I want to chat is something I call a Roxy Rock. Now, chat, who knows the name of this mineral?
Look how prepared he is.
I'm not going to pause for very long because I doubt anyone knows the name of it. This is that, aka Coming Tonight. Coming Tonight is a magnesium iron silicate found in metamorphic rocks. If anyone needs a refresher from school, metamorphic means it's been formed from existing rocks, but under usually as a consequence of like high pressure or high temperature. Now, how did the wonderful Coming Tonight get its name?
Yeah,
well,
please
Coming Tonight is named after the town it was discovered in 1824, Cummington, Massachusetts.
There's a Cummington,
and the suffix "ite" comes from Greek and means connected with or belonging to. So often when minerals are found in certain places, they'll be named place "ite," such as Cummingtonite, or named after the person who discovered it. For example, Bunsenite, which is named after Robert Bunsen, the guy that Bunsen burner is named after.
Okay.
Cummingtonite is also found in Sweden, South Africa, Scotland, and New Zealand. So if you're from any of those places, you might find yourself coming tonight. Okay. A couple of funny quotes from scientific literature. Coming Tonight is only moderately hard, ranking about 5 to 6 on the Mohs scale. For context, the Mohs scale measures how resistant a mineral is to scratching. So like diamonds would be a 10, whereas something like clay or talcum would be a 1. When heated, Coming Tonight undergoes cleavage. Cleavage is when a mineral splits along flat surfaces as opposed to jagged chunks. So it looks really pretty, and like it's the kind of thing you see in those satisfying videos where they have like the coloured sand and the jelly and like, you know, that kind of stuff. Despite the name, Coming Tonight rarely forms in isolation. Coming Tonight is not a lonely fella. Coming Tonight forms with other minerals too, usually. Anyway, that's my part on Coming Tonight. Now, another story I call a nano no-no. Now, these, some of you may recognise, these are called nanotubes, or NTs in literature for short. Keep it short and snappy. They are like super, super tiny straws, but they're super useful. They were a massive craze a decade or two ago because they were being discovered and loads of uses for them. And they're typically made of carbon. They're super strong. They're really light, not heavy at all. And they're both thermal and electrical conductors, which means that they're super useful in loads of different areas. For example, they can be used to deliver drugs down the tubes or helping improve the efficiency of stuff like solar panels. And so some researchers in China wanted to make these nanotubes out of a different material, not just carbon. And they settled on copper. But how do they name their new type of nanotube made out of copper? Well, what they did is they thought copper, we'll take the chemical symbol for it, Cu, and we'll combine it with nanotubes. I think you see where this is going. And they come up with cunts. If you're British, you probably know who that is in the top right, or maybe you do. Here is the paper published in 2014 by the Chinese scientists. There's a, in case you can't see it, there's a helpful pointer. As you can see, whether it's like by accident or by purpose, this trio of Chinese scientists came up with a pretty iconic name for their tubes. And yeah, now I need to delve in the realm of maths.
Oh,
So some of you may know I'm a proud mathematician myself, so I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't take you down a little tour of the funniest named results and theorems in maths, and here are my few favourites. The Chicken McNugget theorem. Now, this is actually a very interesting theorem, and I'm going to ask chat what they think the answer is in a second, so have a little think. McDonald's sells McNuggets in packets of 6, 9, or 20. I'm not sure if this is still the case, but this was the case at the time of this theorem. Say I want to buy exactly n nuggets, right?
Okay.
Like I want to buy 13 or I want to buy 12.
Uh-huh.
I can't buy n equals 1 nuggets because I have to buy them in packs of 6, 9, or 20, and they're all greater than 1.
Yes.
But the question we ask as mathematicians is, what is the largest number n such that we cannot buy exactly that many nuggets? I'm going to pause, and I want Bloom and Chat to come up with their answers. So there's a number that, say the number is, it's not, but say the answer is 12. It means you can't buy 12 nuggets, but any number bigger than 12, you can buy exactly that number of nuggets. Bloom, you can unmute. I'd like to know what you think the number is.
I have a 69 in chat.
Okay.
I don't think that's necessarily true, but I think, let me think about this. It would be, Cyrus says 43, but I would actually need to take a moment to calculate the possibility.
Okay, but just a random guess. Just a random guess.
Random guess. I think it would be less than 100. It would probably be less than 50. I agree with Cyrus. So let's say my guess is 37. I don't know.
It's a good guess, but it's not as good as Cyrus. It is 43
It is
exactly.
43.
You can generalize this problem to having more than 3 packs and having different sizes of packs, and the more mathematical problem is called the Frobenius coin problem, but this is a specific example where you can apply it to buying McNuggets. Next up, the hairy ball theorem. There's an example of a hairy ball. This theorem says there is no non-vanishing continuous tangent vector field on even dimensional n spheres, or for those of us who speak English, you cannot perfectly comb a hairy ball. Essentially, there's no way you can comb a ball and it be flat all across it. But you can perfectly comb a hairy donut, or as we call it as mathematicians, a torus. And there's an example of a hairy donut. Now, knowing that you can't perfectly comb a ball has some interesting implications. This is why there's a swell in the hair on your head, unless you are bald like Demi. And also, this tells us if we consider the wind on the Earth, which is also a sphere, that there's always a cyclone somewhere on Earth. This is technically not true, but it's very often stated. The reason it's not true is because the wind on Earth can technically also move up and down, but it's like kind of not completely wrong. So I threw it in there. Anyway, this is my final piece. I know I've gone over 5 minutes, but I have to keep this one in because this is the best story you ever hear.
Do it.
And it's a tale of 2 mathematicians. Now, let me introduce to our story David and Stephen.
Hi, David. Hi, Stephen.
David and Stephen met as first-year
Steven.
grads at Princeton University in 1970 and soon became friends.
Wow.
And they became friends, and they were like, let's write a paper together. But as grad students at the time, they didn't have the capabilities or the resources to do that. Luckily, 5 years later, they both found themselves as members of faculty at Rutgers University, and so they wanted to write the paper, and that they did. They came up with an algorithm to determine whether a given set of sections provides a basis up to torsion for the Mordell-Weil group of an elliptic surface E to S, where S is isomorphic to the projective line. I also really don't know what on earth that means, but we didn't care about what that means. We care about what it's called. What did they call their new algorithm? Well, as commonly done in math, they decided to name it after themselves. I mean, it's a pretty cool thing to do. If I came up here, I might want to name it after myself to the cloud. But I may have left out a key detail to the story.
What are their last names?
See, let's bring back David and Stephen.
Oh, God. Oh,
See, David's full name is David Cox.
No. Oh, what's Stephen's last name?
Stephen's full name.
Ronnie, what's Stephen's last name?
Is Stephen Zucker.
Oh.
So when David and Stephen met, they really became friends because they both had the same obscene idea, and that was to come up with, ladies and gentlemen, the cocksucker machine. yeah,
What does that do?
I think that's the best named thing in maths, full stop. David Cox's work in the same field also led to two mathematicians later on naming another object the Cox ring as well. So it doesn't just stop at the cocksucker machine. Cox is, all over the place. But yeah, the cocksucker machine. And I want to dedicate this final part of the presentation. I'm finishing up now to Stephen Zucker, who unfortunately passed away in 2019, and I wanted a short memorial about him. His contributions to various fields, including arithmetic, geometry, have been super impactful. And David Cox commented in his memorial, "I will miss Steve and his unique sense of humor." Thanks to David Cox and Stephen Zucker, as a mathematician, I can say that we're not all boring, and maths can be fun after all. Yeah, thanks for watching. That was my presentation. I hope you enjoyed.
Can you hear me? I'm clapping. I don't know if you can hear it in Discord, but I'm clapping. Wow, unbelievable. Oh, and Vamp is just
Hello.
Vamp is just straight in, bro. What's up, Vamp?
Can I go? All right.
Yeah, you can
All right,
go.
all right. Very excited. Very, very excited for my presentation. As you can read, it's why you should
No.
move to the country of Georgia. I got the background put to me. We got Georgian script up here. Got Georgian carpets. And yeah. How do I go next?
He doesn't know how to go to the
Oh,
next
okay,
slide.
I can click.
He got there.
All right, reason number 1, the food. As you can see, they got some really delectable food.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know what it is, but it looks good.
I pissed her. What's up, Rax?
Number 2, the safety.
Ah.
Last time, the last time there was.
Bro, he can't do it. Wait, look what's behind the cam.
The last time there was a word. All right, you can read it. Here's spoon. Twice.
Oh my god.
Reason number 4. Oh, fuck 3. The women or men,
He says,
Yeah.
well, man, I don't
You got-
hate.
You can read this out.
Vamp will be there soon, honey bun. Just get there and wait
anyway.
for me.
Put the wrong number. But yeah, I'll be there soon. So, yeah. And thanks for coming.
That's the presentation.